Thank you. Good evening. It's really my pleasure to introduce this evening Mohammed Hassim. I don't think he needs being introduced. You already know him. If I would be doing anything new, I would be introducing his family who are with us this evening. So, Hassim is a highly active ELT supervisor in the Sus Masada Academy, and he is also MATE ex-president. In fact, Hassim is too active to refuse an invitation, even if it is a short notice. And this is what happened to him with his experience with this 5th middle school seminar. His keynote speech, which will set the tone for this seminar, is about common issues in classroom management. I'm sure that you have plenty of common issues, common problems related to classroom management. Hassim selected just a few, which were raised by teachers that he visited or he had a chat with, and they are the most common. And this will be the focus on of his presentation, or keynote speech, sorry. Hassim, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you, Secretary.
Oh, it's on.
Is it? Yeah. Okay, I'm really honored today to give this keynote speech. I have the honor to be or to witness the birth of the middle school seminar for the first time in Marrakesh in 2006. And I can see that it has become an established event in the agenda of MATE, which is really positive and responds to the needs of this category of teachers, which in fact is characterized by specific outstanding characteristics among which is that most of them, if not all, are still young. And when we say young, they are energetic, they are open, tolerant, they are digitally native, they have a lot to give, and they are homogeneous. So these elements give certain power to this category of teachers, which should be exploited within the events of MATE or within other events, pedagogical and associative. And I can see also from the internet that they are really active. They create a lot of groups, a lot of groups of people who share the same interests and same concerns. The same thing can be said about their students. Their students are young. They are different from teachers from high school. They have specific characteristics. They are also enthusiastic. They are also digitally native. And what relates teachers to the students is that it is the first time that they are open to the language, to the English language. And the role that the teachers in the middle school play in this sense is that they form the first attitude to students towards this language. It might be positive or negative, but in most cases it is positive. So the teachers that secondary school teachers, the students that teachers in the secondary school receive are the product of the middle school teachers. This is also another important element that should be considered. Concerning the topic, classroom management is really an important topic, and it is extensively discussed among the teachers in the literature, and it englobes all the elements that are related to teaching. And here I've tried to base my presentation on a broad definition of classroom management as being all the elements, educational elements, that are conducive to successful teaching and learning. This is the broad definition. I don't want to restrict the topic too much. This gives me enough space to talk about various issues related to classroom management. As Sylvia said, the focus in this presentation will be on certain aspects of classroom management that are commonly and most of the time raised by teachers during pedagogical meetings, during training sessions, during online discussions, during classroom observations. And I will also rely on my classroom observation of teachers and the problems and the issues that I can notice and are shared by many teachers at this level. Of course, the elements that I'm going to talk about in this presentation is not all the facts that are there concerning classroom management. There are other issues, but these are, from my point of view, are the most important. These issues, though they will be separated in my presentation, it's only for methodological purposes. Some of the time, they are interrelated, and it's difficult to separate them. Another thing is that each issue contains a lot of sub-issues. When you talk about content management, you are talking about a lot of things, as we will see later. And I don't want to subdivide the issues so it becomes a very extensive list. I just want to gather them together so that we have only 5 most important issues. So I'm going to talk only about 5 important issues. These issues, as you see on the slide, there is the content management, students management, material management, assessment management, professional development management. So these are the key issues that I am going to tackle in this presentation. Concerning content management, well, this is in fact a very, very, very important issue right from the beginning of the introduction of English in the middle school. Teachers are faced with 14 units to teach for 2 hours a week. If you count the normal year, you will have about 54 weeks, about 80 hours. It's really difficult to cover all that stuff in such limited time. So one of the issues is that teachers have never finished the 14 units. This is an absolute judgment. Through discussions with teachers and supervisors all over Morocco, I could see that most teachers, even the most hard-working teachers, cannot go beyond 10 units. The medium is between 7 and 9. 10 is with great difficulty. And it's good that the ministry last year thought of reducing the amount of content. Now it's 10 units instead of 14. But still the problem of content is an issue. To do all the extra work, the projects and extra materials, it's difficult to cover even 10 units. And I think this is a very difficult situation that the ministry should have thought about right from the beginning. It is clear that 14 units is too much. And here, from the big size of content, a lot of problems in gender. You suffer from time management, we suffer from assessment management. A lot of things come out of that issue. But still, this doesn't mean that there is no solution. And by the way, while I am dealing with these issues, I'm taking a proactive attitude. I'm not just telling you about the problems and leaving you without solutions, but I'm going to suggest certain solutions that can be tried or discussed, and to see to what extent we can solve certain problems. So, proactive attitude and preventive measures. When you know the problems, you can think about them beforehand. So this is what I mean by preventive measures. So, concerning content, there is a common idea, which is we have the syllabus and we have the textbook. If you follow the textbook page by page, you'll have difficulty managing the time. But if you deal with the syllabus is manageable because it is composed of certain elements in grammar, in reading, the 4 skills, and so on. And it's up to the teacher to give an adequate amount of time to each element. So if you deal with the syllabus, you will not suffer from time budget deficit. Second point is long-term planning. If you plan lesson by lesson strategy or planning, you will suffer from problem of time management. But if you plan for short and long term, I think you can manage to have a balance between content and time. I suggest that planning a unit is better than planning a lesson by lesson. So here I suggest just 2 points: long-term planning and focusing on the syllabus rather than the textbook. Because an element in the syllabus can be taught in a 100 ways. And it's up to you to select which way you would like to follow. A textbook is just one way of dealing with content. You can spend a year on certain elements, and you can spend 1 hour on that same element. So these are just 2 strategies for dealing with this. And when you plan, you have long planning, this gives you the opportunity for considering prioritizing which are the most important elements in the syllabus. Recycling, it gives an opportunity for revisiting certain elements, but if you follow the book, you will not know what elements should be revisited or recycled. So also what we call pooling, there are certain elements that are scattered along the book, and they belong to the same category. We can put them together and treat them in an adequate way. We have adapting, we have omitting, substituting, consolidating, and we have time for assessment and remedial work. If you follow lesson by lesson planning, what you will have by the end is finishing the syllabus or the book, but not doing the work appropriately. Because assessment helps a lot in remedial work, consolidation, revision, and so on. The second issue is students' management. Teachers suffer a lot from the size of the class, and this is a common issue from the primary school to the secondary school. Most teachers in most areas of Morocco suffer from the big size of the class. For teachers of middle school, they do not only suffer from the size of the class, but the number of classes. If you have 24 hours, it means you have 12 classes. If you have 12 classes, it means you have
about 500 students.
450 students and 450 copies to correct and to deal with. So it has a lot of impact on the quality of teaching and learning. From classroom observation and from my observation of different classes, I noticed that most teachers resort to teacher-centered learning and teaching because it solves the problem. The teacher gives the instruction, the students respond, you guide the student, you direct them towards the result that you want. You may resort to choral repetition, loud reading, many teacher-centered activities, and this at the expense of the quality teaching and individualized learning and differentiated methodology. Most of the time there is a collective correction and collective feedback. Collective correction and collective feedback does not serve individual students. Because feedback should be individualized according to the needs of each student. And teacher-centered methodology leads to high teacher talking time. It's always the teacher who is talking and the students are just following. Because it solves the problem of the size of the class. There are also discipline problems which leads to much control by the teacher and very limited freedom in the classroom. The relationship between the teacher and the students is never humane. It's the client, it's a business-like relationship. Sometimes you don't even recognize your students if you have 450 students throughout the week. So to avoid discipline, noise, physical class management, it is advisable, and this is something that you can find in the literature if you read about classroom management, it is advisable to establish routine and rules right from the beginning of the year. So the first week of the year or the first 2 weeks of the year are very crucial in physical management of classrooms. These routines and rules should be democratically agreed on. Because when you establish a democratic relationship with the students, you seem to be opting for a humanistic approach, for a humanistic relationship between you and your students. This helps students notice that they are considered as citizens and not clients, as human beings and not a collection of students crammed in classrooms. Students should be, of course, trained on these rules and routines from the beginning. Of course, you will need time to have these rules established as a routine. Learning and teaching is not solely about content. In most cases, teachers are more concerned with content and they forget about other things that are part and parcel of teaching and learning. The relationship, the learning skills, the behavior management, the way, the conduct in the classroom, the rules, the routines are part of teaching. Students learn from your classroom a lot of times beyond grammar and vocabulary. So the student in this sense, or the class in this sense, should be treated as a community. Why teachers resort to teacher-centered learning? It's because it helps in solving a lot of problems, sometimes without knowing about the other side issues. And teachers believe that it's impossible within these conditions to have a 100% participation. I think this is a wrong idea. Even in big classes, more than 50, you can have 100% participation. When you delegate power to the students and they share the responsibility of their learning with you, here you can raise the participation level. Let me give you an example. When you introduce a dialogue to the students, what most of the time the teacher does is that he goes or she goes through repetition, helping the students to memorize the dialogue, and the students repeat the dialogue in pairs. They come to the class, to the front of the class, and they start repeating. Another two students from another place, and another student from, and these we call them, as you know, open peer work. And it's very rare that teachers resort to closed peer work. Thinking that students will just take it for fun or make noise or will not concentrate on that. But if they are trained on that, they will assume the responsibility and they will do it as appropriately as they should. And when you ask the students to do peer work, closed peer work, it's 100% participation. If you ask the students to introduce themselves, what's your name, how old are you, where do you live, and you give the students 2 or 3 minutes to talk together, even if they make noise, it doesn't matter. So think of each 2 peers are doing the same thing in 3 minutes. So in 3 minutes you have a 100% participation. And this will develop through routines, through training, and it will become a perfect way of practicing the language in a more effective way. Another thing that I noticed from class observation, and this is not observable in secondary school, is that many teachers resort to loud reading. Loud reading is not accepted in secondary school, but it is a common practice in middle school. I don't know where this comes from. I don't know. But it's a common practice. When they have reading, the teacher reads the text and the students listen. And then he asks, or she asks a few students to read loudly before the activity. When you ask the teacher why, he says that I need to model pronunciation and students should read in order to have good pronunciation. But this is not a pronunciation lesson. This is a comprehension lesson. It doesn't matter if the student does not pronounce well but understands the text. Because reading normally is silent activity. If you are concerned with pronunciation, you have to do a pronunciation activity, not a reading with love. And when students read silently, it's 100% participation. But if you read yourself and you ask 5 or 6 students to read, it's only limited participation. Closed peer work is important. Also, small group work. Most of the time, the classes are situated in rows of 2 pairs of students, one in front of the other. It's easy to do group work in 4s when 2 students turn back to the other 2 students. So it's possible to have group work in 4s. And also the U-shape, though it seems impossible, but I from observation, there are teachers who have U-shape in their classes. It's the same class, the same size, the same number of tables, the same perhaps classroom size, but they have U-shape in their classes. It takes time at the beginning to reorder the tables and so on, but if it is a routine, it will become easier for them to arrange and organize themselves. And here I say it's important to share the responsibility of teaching with the students. When they help with the arrangement of the classroom, they are helping with classroom management too. In this way, when you have close peer work, you have group work, and you have silent reading, the TTT is reduced. And this is how I say the issues are interrelated. You cannot separate them. Arrangement of the classroom, organizing the interactions help in reducing the TTT. Also, another noticeable thing is that in middle school, I noticed that teachers shout a lot. This is something I noticed when I attend classes. They shout and they do a lot of work with their voice. And the immediate response is that the students shout louder. and nobody listens to anybody. And there is only shouting. Whatever the teacher says, the students repeat loudly. And whatever the teacher asks, everybody answers. So there should be some organization of responses. The volume. And there is what we call time on task and time off task. When you attend a class where everybody shouts, you think that everybody is on task. That's not true. They are all off task because they are doing something that nobody benefits from. But if you have a calm class and the teacher who uses his voice in a reasonable way and he organizes the classroom in a way that everyone listens to the other, then there is much more time on task rather than off task. When the students work in peers or work in groups, it doesn't mean that the teacher is not working. It means that he delegates part of his power to the students, and the students are benefiting from the teaching and learning time within the classroom. So this is a big fallacy that big classes do not lead to 100% participation. Another problem or issue is material management. Most of the time, teachers resort to verbal instruction. And you know that students at this level, because they are young, they are most of the time visually oriented. This is number one. Second is that the level of the language does not allow for extensive use of verbal explanation. The students have very little amount of language to manipulate with. So we have to resort to other elements like visual aids and technological materials and so on. And also to physical movement in the classroom. So we have to resort to visual aids and physical movement more than to verbal explanations, and showing in this case is more important than telling. And when you talk and you explain verbally, the TTT is high. But if you show a picture and you say this is X or Y, you don't need any more explanation. It's there. But if you don't have that visual aid, you need a lot of effort explaining, creating context, and so on. The use of technology is very important, especially that in middle school, students have classes of informatics and they use digital materials, they use the internet, and when they find these things in the classroom, the degree of motivation becomes high because you are responding to a certain need and want that the students are eager to see in the English classroom. Also, with the use of visual aids and audio-visual materials, and technology requires certain skills on the part of the teacher. Bringing materials to the classroom adds to the classroom management burden. You cannot bring your listening material and play it if you do not know how to play or use a computer or to handle a CD-ROM or to check before you can whether the loudspeaker is working or whether the computer is sufficiently charged with electricity or whether the electricity itself exists in the classroom. So when you bring materials to the classroom, it's another element of management, as I say. Issue number 4 is assessment management, and as I said before, when you have 420 students, it's a big burden correcting all those papers. If you have 3 quizzes plus a global test, that's 4 times. You multiply it by 420 4 times, and you will have a huge number of papers. This is due to the fact that teachers consider assessment as always being written. This is not always the case. Written assessment is very small part within assessment. Assessment can be treated or handled throughout the lessons, throughout the activities, throughout the students' performances, and so on. In order to solve this problem, I think that involving the students in correction is very important. If you have a grammar activity and it's composed of fill in the blanks and sentence completion or tense transformation or vocabulary, etc., it's easy for students to correct for you. If they are trained on that, they can correct the activity in 15 minutes. But if you sit down yourself, it will take 2 hours to correct 40 papers. But here, when you responsibilize the students and you involve them in taking part in teaching and learning, they become, they have high self-esteem and they treat the matter as a responsibility rather than something to play with. The new ministry circular gives a very wide range of testing or assessing techniques. We have the written quizzes, we have homework, we have out-of-class assignments, we have portfolios, we have projects. These are all elements of assessment. So if you correct the written quizzes with the students, then it will not become a burden on you. It's a shared burden. You can check, at the beginning, you can check whether the students correct seriously and the way you like. If you notice certain anomalies, you can again discuss that with the students. It's something that is built up. It's not something that you can implement easily. It's something that needs training. So when students become accustomed, they can help you in the correction. And as I said, written quizzes are only one part. It's a third of the mark of continuous assessment. Performance-based assessment is another element that can be done during the lessons. It doesn't require a specific time. It's part of the lesson. When you think of assessing students based on their performance, it should be part of the lesson. So whenever a student performs a certain task, you can give a mark. Also for portfolios, you can give students to do certain projects and including their portfolios. But here, the students also should be involved in their own self-assessment. You should give them a checklist or a grid or whatever, and students evaluate their projects and their work based on that checklist. You can also resort to peer correction or group correction. One group of students can correct the work of another group, etc. So involving the students in assessment can alleviate the burden of correction and so on, which is one of the problematic issues in classroom management. The last issue, I don't want to take too long, the last issue is professional development management. The teachers in middle school, as I said, they are still young, and they have a long working life, and it's better to think of their own professional development right from the beginning. It's unfortunate that in Morocco, the number of supervisors are getting smaller and smaller. And this has a very negative impact on the in-service training of teachers. Supervisors now do not have enough time to spend on pedagogical meetings. They are burdened with other issues like exams and work at the academy and classroom observation for marking, and this takes much time of the supervisor's work, in addition to the work, as I say, at the academy for the research unit and other tasks that we most of the time are called upon to do. So here it's important for the teachers to think of their own self-development. One first step is collaboration among the teachers. Within each school, there should be a community of teachers who can work together, collaborate, share. A lot of things can be solved this way. For example, the issue of assessment. Instead of preparing all the quizzes yourself, you can exchange quizzes with other teachers. You can edit each other's quizzes. If you have a problem, you can sit down. Even in classroom management problem, you can sit down and think about practical solutions to real issues that you only within that school know very well. Do not expect that an external party can solve inside or in-house problems if the teachers do not give enough time to sit down together and think about those problems. So collaboration within one school in order to create a certain community of teachers who are learning from each other and learning from the educational context they are in. Of course, there are professional associations like NAID where you can share your concerns, because, for example, in middle school here, it gathers teachers who belong to the same category, and they can share their own problems, they can tackle their own concerns, and it gives them a lot of food for thought. That is, when you do that, you have a fresh mind, and you are updated, and you know about the different issues that other colleagues suffer from, and you can even share the tasks and start a new period of collaboration that can last further. There is an important element for professional development, which is online professional development. For example, only will take the example of Facebook. In Facebook, in general, and as I said at the beginning, there are a lot of problems, classroom problems, educational problems, that all teachers suffer from. But complaining about them is not the solution. We have to have a proactive attitude. When I finish a year with a lot of problems, it has to be the next problem. And the following year, I should prepare something in order to avoid those problems. For example, the
problem, this is your problem. The fact that we apply a certain methodology as far as routines and rules of classroom management, you solve a lot of problems ahead of you. And also, as I said, we have to prepare preventive measures. We know when you are aware of your problems, you can look for strategies to solve them and try to implement and to experiment all the possible ways in order to achieve a successful teaching and learning within the class. I think that the coming presentations and workshops will deal with classroom management in a very detailed way. That's why I didn't want to get into specificities. I treated the topic in a very global way, and I tried only to select the most common issues, and I hope that I was not wrong in my choice. And anyway, this is what I came to from classroom observations and discussions with teachers and supervisors. And thank you for your attention.